Hello. So, as you can probably tell, this isn't my normal setup, and this is going to be a very slightly scuffed stream. It started already. I'm currently in Leeds at my parents' house for what was a funeral and now is the live podcast from the Square Ball. So I'm not at my proper setup, but Daniel Farke has had his press conference, and you know me, I need to talk about it. So I'm going to dive into it. It's going to be a fairly quick stream, more to be a recording, but it's just easier to do as a stream. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below and I will cover them either live on the stream or in the video that I do ideally tomorrow, covering pre-match, Ipswich's tactics, all that jazz. So Daniel Farke started by being asked what he can expect from the match, and he basically said, "You never know. It's the Championship." It was pointed out to him that the last match between the two sides was the 7-goal thriller, 4-3 to Leeds United, and he basically said, well, you don't know what's going to happen. First match can be a 4-3, but the next one could be 0-0. It could be absolutely anything. You can't be certain. Also, sorry, I've just realised my mic quality is probably very bad, but I'm doing my best. Also, my laptop's down here, so I'm going to keep glancing at it. Sorry about that. Also, if you've not yet, please subscribe. If this is your first stream, quality's only going to go up from here. Yeah, the match could be anything. It could be a 0-0, could be another 4-3. It could be absolutely chaos. And he also didn't want to speak about it being decisive. A lot of people have got this game down as a must-win, and that's admittedly how I clickbaited this, because I'm covering the way that he answered the question of, is it must-win? And he said it's not decisive. It doesn't make a difference. Either way, it's going to be Ipswich or us get 3 points, or there's 1 point each. The same would happen if one of the teams lost on a standard match week. And when we lost to Sunderland, that wasn't decisive. If Ipswich win in 3 weeks' time, that won't be decisive. Ipswich-Leicester is not going to decide the title because there's 23 matches left of the season. That's a hell of a lot of football left to play. We could go on an obscenely good run. Ipswich could collapse and be relegated. No one knows what's going to happen because we're barely halfway through the season. It's a bit too early to be making those judgments, although I understand, of course, there's people that are going to make those judgments. He also referred to the tallies that Ipswich and Leicester have at the top of the table as unique because they are. They are very weird totals for teams to have. The first and second best runs of any football team to have played in the Championship are happening in the same season at the same time, whilst we're following behind, only slightly off what got Marcelo Bielsa promoted. It's bizarre, the fact that we're not able to say that we're having a good season because two teams are having slightly better seasons. I don't understand it too much, but let's move on. He then talked a little bit about the requirements in January, and he stayed a little bit vague on this one. He said, first of all, what we need is many points in January. If we come out of January with maximum points, we're going to have closed the gap to Ipswich. We're going to close in on Leicester. They both could have some trouble. I know it's AFCON in that period. I know it's the Asia Cup in that period. And they're both chances for us to try and take advantage, clamber back a little bit of that gap. Hopefully, we can work our way towards promotion. He also said that let's concentrate on the games rather than the transfers, because you could tell throughout the end of the summer transfer window, he's not the guy that's solely responsible for transfers. He's not the guy that people are negotiating with. He just has conversations with Greta Steinson and the other guy, that Nick Hammond, that's him, that deal with the transfers and say, okay, this sort of style of player is what I need. Are we in negotiations? And Daniel Farke will get involved that way. He's not the one that can directly say, we'll make a deal for this person at this time and it'll be brilliant. That's not his job. And you can see why he doesn't like talking about it and why he's probably not going to talk about it that much in January until we get something done. He did, however, say to expect a quiet January. A few months back, Angus Kinnear noted that potentially the most important thing at the moment for Leeds is the fact that we've got 2 loan slots still open, and that's what I think we can see happening. Ian Maatsen, left back, maybe, because we have got a left back on the way. Maatsen's not on loan anywhere. That could happen. A number 10 on loan also could happen. I feel like signing Nadia Mamiri is going to be a lot harder now than it was at the start of the season, because if I remember right, he plays for Leverkusen and they are currently fighting for the Bundesliga. He won't want to make that move. But yeah, I think the quiet January is probably on the way. No permanent signings. If there's anything, it'll be loans. But then he dived into team news. And he said that in all likelihood, we won't start all 4 games in 10 days with the same lineup, because that's just not sustainable. That's a hell of a lot of football to play for players that are likely tired. He mentioned that Ethan Ampadu definitely has the right to be tired because he's played every single match this season. Went into a little bit more detail on the fitness thing, but I will come back to that in a few minutes. We can see some rotation with the likes of Firpo coming back in, with Byram likely regaining fitness by the end of the month as well. You can see a left back come in, Spence going over to right back, Gray maybe pitching in midfield instead of at right back, plus Gray potentially not getting some minutes would be really good for him, I think. But he also specifically mentioned that he isn't a fan of resting players because players will lose fitness if they don't play. They need competition. You can't just say, don't play football for 3 weeks, because then they're not going to get up to pace and they're not going to keep at their ideal speed. As I mentioned earlier, by the way, if you've got any questions about the presser, ask them in the comments below. This is admittedly not the best of setups that I've got because it's a very scuffed, put together one in my childhood bedroom. I know it's a nostalgia fest, but you can only see the wall behind me. And yeah, sorry, we'll be back to normal quality soon-ish. But yeah, players will lose fitness. That just sort of naturally happens if you don't play them. It's why if we secure the playoffs, he's not going to say Somerville take 3 weeks off, James take 3 weeks off, Piru Rotea take some weeks off, because that's a stupid idea, because it means players eventually lose their match sharpness and will get significantly worse. Junior Firpo and Jan Poveda are back in training now and available to play at the weekend. He said that Jan Poveda came back really happy because he had a good stint with Colombia, which is good because I am going to very slightly turn the camera so I can actually stand in the middle rather than leaning. Because Poveda went on international duty, performed quite well, maybe could get some future international call-ups. That would be the absolute dream for him, I feel. And being allowed to go off means that he's going to have a little bit more trust in the club. Junior Firpo is back in training. A lot of people won't be the happiest with that, but that's probably a good thing because we could do with a left back. Maybe not for Ipswich. I think Ipswich is a little bit too soon for him. Just going to quickly check the comment. You look about 10 foot tall in front of that door. Glove Pervader's back in the side. I'm not 10 foot tall. It's about there on me, I think. I'm not. I've had to sort of wang jangle it a little bit. So I've got my phone plugged into my laptop at the moment. And then my phone is on a like tripod-y thing that's just sort of angled that makes me look a little bit taller, but I will take it. I will take looking 10 foot tall. I'm not going to complain about that in the slightest. I'm also glad that Pervader's back inside because weirdly I think he's quite good in that 10. That's something that we need. But on the Firpo note, Ipswich is too early for him. Ipswich is also a little bit too scary for him, in my opinion. They're a team that is flying high, that is just getting chances and chances and chances and chances. And if we are able to give them not those chances, I feel like we can be a little bit more comfortable. But I'm not 1,000% sure on that. And then we have a bunch more news about other players, including Stuart Dallas, who is in individual training at the moment, still recovering from that absolutely horrendous injury that he got against Manchester City. I think we can blame Jesse Marsh for that one because that was the period in which Jesse Marsh was basically saying, get into him, fuck him up all the time. Byram and Shackleton are rehabbing and not quite available yet, but will likely be available after New Year. If things go well, I guess in theory they could come back a little bit sooner because we've had some very, very quick recoveries recently with Pascal Struijk, for example. But I think we're at the stage of the season where it's smarter to say, stay fit. You don't need to hurt yourself. We've got 23 matches to go and we've got a decent enough squad. Don't ruin yourself to try and get back early. Farke also said that he's too experienced to overthink things. He said that he's a little bit too old to be making these snap decisions and hugely rotating his squad based on a couple of poor results, which tells me that he won't make massive changes for Ipswich this weekend. I feel like although Nonto coming in would be a good thing against teams that sit low against us, Ipswich will not do that. I think Piru is probably the better shout. Purely because Ipswich will play very open football that we can exploit with our counter-attacking style, and that's where the Piru arriving late in the box thing will work really well. Nonto can crack open a low block. He can create opportunities, but he won't need to do that. And against Ipswich, I think he's just another pacey player, and we'd lose that finishing edge from Gilles Piru if we don't get very many chances, which is very true. He also went on an incredibly hardcore note at one point, and he said he still wants to die, wants to kill. I don't even know how to address this one. He's got an instinct of, we have to win this. An instinct of, we really need to win this. An instinct of, we've got to push ourselves as hard as we can to secure all 3 points whenever we can. Also, my webcam's jumping about a bit. I just want to make sure that everything's working fine. I think we are. Okay, cool. And I think this was specifically referring to the chances that we missed in the last few matches, which weren't ideal, to be completely honest with you. Let's make sure you're plugged in. That would be good. The chances we created in the last few matches, Rutter had a lot, Piru had a couple, James had a few, and we didn't get enough goals out of them. And that's a little bit painful when we're a side that definitely needs to be scoring these goals, because Ipswich are massively overperforming. Leicester are massively overperforming, both on goals for and goals against. We don't concede many chances, and that's why our XG against is so good. But when we concede those chances, it's a goal, because we're getting a little bit unlucky with it. Leicester, however, concede more than us in terms of chances, fewer goals. Ipswich, same thing. If we can change that conceding 1 or 2 chances into conceding 0 chances, we'll be completely fine. I know that's a big ask, but it's something that we want to happen. He also mentioned that it feels a little bit like it's the referees against us. Not going to touch on that, but we all know how the Coventry ref was. And then he went a little bit deep and loving of the squad. Said that he's never felt more in love with this group of players. We are Leeds United. We always do this the hard way. I've cut a few words out of that because he was very verbose in this section of what he said. But I think this is really important. This is showing that Daniel Farke has sort of learned what it means to be the manager at Leeds United. It means being a fundamental part of the club's culture rather than just the person that picks the team and picks the tactics and all that stuff. Bielsa got it. Bielsa was in the position of, I will fundamentally change the way that these players see football. I will make them pick litter. I will make them go on training session after training session to know what it feels like to work really hard just to watch a football match. And then we'll win it. Jesse Marsh, complete vibey. We've got to run them off the pitch. We've got to press them hard. We've got to kick them. And then that led to a lot of big danger towards the end of the first season. He ran and relegation at the end of the second. Not good. And I think Daniel Farke has returned to that sort of philosophical, there we go, way of looking at things. The way of going, yes, you can focus on the football pitch, but you can do beyond that. You can also say, what's the culture of the club like? And he clearly understands that the culture of this club is to fight, and is that we are not used to doing things the easy way, and is you've really got to give a shit to get the performances that we need. And that's huge. The fact that he understands that means that he's happy to take that forward in his philosophy and put that at the core of things and understand what fans have gone through. And I really appreciate that. He said that he definitely thinks the team have another level to go to. Due to our youth and potential, we are one of the youngest squads in the Championship, so this is completely understandable. I think the worry is getting that out of them before the summer rather than after the summer, because after the summer we're going to have lost a lot of players if we don't go up. If we do go up and keep this massive group of talented players together, fantastic. We're in the perfect position to keep on pushing. But if we don't, then it could be a very difficult rebuild with a young squad that needs bolstering with what people at the Square Ball tend to refer to as grizzled Championship bastards. And finally, a very good point, the efficiency of the squad has to improve. We are performing on our goals for XG and our goals against XG, but we need to be more efficient than average. That efficiency will ultimately set us apart from the rest of the division and mean that we are picking up all the points that we need when Ipswich stumble, when Leicester stumble. If we can keep that consistency, keep that efficiency as high as we can, we'll get all the points available and be fine. As Daniel Farke mentioned, there's been no time where I've looked at us play a match and said, wow, lucky to get a point there. There's no point where I've gone, oh, you know, I don't think we deserve to win, but I'll take it. It's always been, we've outperformed the other team, we've created more chances, we just haven't put them away. And that's what will make the difference against Ipswich, I think. Anyway, thank you for watching. Apologies for the scuffed setup. I will, I think, fix it for tomorrow's video. If not, it's definitely fixed for Saturday. And yeah, Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe down below if you haven't quite yet. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think will happen in the match. Let me know what you think about Farke's comments on the culture. I think that was really important as well. And I would say become a channel member, but this channel isn't monetized, so watch another video of mine. That'd be really, really helpful. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you later. If I can end the stream. That's always a good question, isn't it? There we go. Gosh.